virgin who can't drive.
I hate to say it, but having a car could help with both of these things. But first, you need to get that driver's license. And that was something all Gen X teenagers were counting on in high school, even more than graduation. You've entered the Gen Experience. I'm Victor, and I eagerly awaited my final score after the anxiety-inducing driver's test. My instructor was the only thing standing in my way of leaving the Department of Motor Vehicles a licensed driver or a total loser. Getting your driver's license was one of the checkboxes to complete as a young adult, and just one of the milestones of high school. Of course, having a license was one thing. Having a car to drive was another. Did you get your license at 16? You know what I'm talking about, so please click that like and consider supporting me by simply pressing subscribe. No test necessary. And if you're someone who waited or is still waiting to get their license, stick around to understand why this generation was so eager to complete this rite of passage. Entering 9th grade, you quickly understood the pecking order. Freshmen were nothing. Thinking back to high school, 9th grade is a blur, a rush to simply get through the year, and that first required PE class. Navigating the halls, the various buildings and classrooms, the cool teachers, and the various cliques, freshman year was an obstacle course you just simply had to finish. Even though you were at the bottom of the food chain, it meant you had nothing but opportunity to climb the ladder and make the best of your high school years. You knew a car could help, and you also knew that there'd be some hapless freshmen coming in behind you to take your place next year when you were a sophomore. And being a sophomore meant driving a car. I didn't know a 15-year-old who didn't look fondly at the sophomore end goal with a daydreaming glint in their eye. Dreams of freedom, of getting out of the house, of the ease to visit friends, hang at the mall, drive themselves to their job, and most importantly, dreaming of the best set of wheels anyone had ever seen. But it wasn't going to be handed to you. You had to work for it, and that started with driver's education. Luckily, schools offered this elective at the time, and you could take it once you were 15. But that was not all. You also needed to practice with somebody, a member of the family, a legal licensed member of the family, to take you out in the real world and help you learn the basics and give you time behind the wheel. In parking lots, around cul-de-sacs, down neighborhood streets, local roads and into businesses, and eventually even the highway. Even the most confident parent had some anxiety as each new kid learned to drive. It was mom or dad who were most responsible to help you learn the finesse of operating a motor vehicle. At that time, the driver's ed teacher also had to get you out on the road in the school's student cars. Remember those? A boring, plain sedan, mostly white, where you and one or two other hopeful drivers went out with the instructor each week. Taking turns driving the city streets was part of the curriculum, and these old curmudgeons had seen it all. You followed their lead and direction. Don't give them any guff lest you get the passenger side brake. The instructor was equipped with his own brake, not the emergency brake, but a press in case of emergency type of brake, a pedal, and they weren't afraid to use it. So get with the program. These old men with their war stories, both from driver's ed and probably real wars, had your future in their hands. You knew the stakes and took it seriously. Passing was the only option. Reporting to class, doing your best there, and with your parents' private lessons when their schedules allowed it, were adding up to a certain licensed driver status. You had watched your family drive cars for years. You thought you had it down, observing your siblings turn the key, put it in gear, and take off to whatever errand mom thought they were capable of doing. Now it was your turn, and you had to play it cool. Act as if nothing bothered you, because if they didn't have faith in you, it didn't matter what the driver's ed course grade was. It was up to mom and dad to get that appointment at the DMV to achieve the ultimate prize. No problem. You got this.
Yo, you're getting on the freeway.
What?
No, turn right.
Okay.
Get out of the lane.
Okay,
No.
okay.
Okay, get the procedure. Just get out the lane. Truck.
What do I do?
Yo, go straight. Go straight. Go straight. Go. Look at down.
Okay.
I'm here with you. Whatever you do, keep your hands on the wheel at all times. Oh, there it is. All right. Damn, you did wonderful.
You're doing great. That license is in the bag. Driver's education could be during 0 hour. Does that still exist? I mean 0 hour. I have heard that driver's ed was eliminated years ago, but 0 hour was that hour before any other classes began, before school was officially in session. The class was only a semester long, and most kids enrolled depending on when their 16th birthday fell. Mine is late in the school year, so I enrolled in the second semester of the sophomore year. 20 of my contemporaries joined me learning informative, if not dry, lessons via lecture. And lest we forget, the already vintage automobile simulators, as well as experiencing the realities of automobile accidents. Watching movies in class was common. But these were not recent blockbusters. These were films demonstrating the aftermath of car crashes. Not fender benders, mind you, full-on total car wrecks where the narrator sternly let you know that due to the negligence of the teenage occupants of the vehicle, none had survived.
But sometimes it could be a lot worse.
We looked on in terror at these scared straight films. The disembodied voiceover spoke while close-ups of the mangled mess of car were featured in great detail. Doors missing, front end sheared off, and blood. Yes, blood still on the wheel, the dashboard, and seats. Fresh from the kill, the instructor casually turned off the film and sent the next 3 pale-faced teens to their student cars for practice on the road. The required classroom hours were being completed, and your father had yet to stop on a highway exit and swap seats with you to drive home in total frustration. So, you must be doing something right. Years of watching them shift gears, press pedals, and flick a signal lever had paid off. To accomplish any of this, you first had to have acquired a driver's permit. That was your first trip to the DMV. The permit, available when you're 15 and a half, legally allowed you to drive with another legal driver, usually of a certain age and older depending on the state. Only with this temporary piece of paper could you successfully pass the state test once all prerequisites were met. You began to dread that final test as time drew near, but more importantly, would you have a car to drive at all? Moms certainly answered that latter question. Moms couldn't wait until they had more drivers in the house. That meant errand boys and girls to make runs back and forth to the store or to pick up family members. At least you knew you were going to get to drive, but perhaps not on your terms, and for now, not in your own car. Dad, on the other hand, was hoping that there was a discount with multiple members on the insurance policy, as adding new teen drivers to your account isn't actually rewarded by the likes of Progressive or State Farm. Teens are not the most responsible drivers, or anything else for that matters. Basically, they're a mess. The thought of driving put your head in the clouds. Your mind barely even entertained the idea of failing the class, the state test, or even your parents' expectations. You saw yourself in your parents' green Buick driving down the road, your best bud in the passenger seat listening to the top 40 on the radio, or wearing out one of your favorite tape cassettes. Heading off to the mall, maybe you'd even meet that special somebody.
You're a virgin who can't drive.
Well, 1 out of 2 isn't bad, but having a car as a wingman might help on that other front. I had just turned 16, and there were only 3 weeks left in school. Like many other students in the same position, I had already made my appointment to take the test at the Department of Motor Vehicles and leaving a licensed driver. It was the first week of summer break, right after that last day of school. I just had to see if Mom could drive me there. After passing driver's ed by hesitant instructors reluctant to see any of this new generation on the road, we were ready for whatever the state had in store. By this time, you were aware it was a written exam and real-life road test with an instructor, a stranger. Our parents had faith in us, you had confidence, and I had a 15-passenger GMC van to take my test in. Yeah, we took the test in our own car, and this behemoth was my ticket to status. It would have been devastating to fail. The shame would have been too much to handle. The embarrassment having to tell our friends, some of who were counting on us to get that license as they would not yet be eligible, was just too much to bear.
Let's see, shall we? You can't park. You can't switch lanes. You can't make right-hand turns. You've damaged private property, and you almost killed someone. Offhand, I'd say you failed.
Now, you could always schedule another driver's test after the required waiting period, but I had plans, immediate plans, like that night to drive, and all summer. Not to mention being seen on the first day of junior year, driving myself to school and parking my car in that lot. Important plans. Every 16-year-old in the Gen experience remembers that day. Once they called your name, you sat to take the written test. And there were no phones to help you cheat and answer, and you wouldn't dare, as being caught cheating for this government-issued license was worse than a non-passing grade. The written test was a joke. What does a red 8-sided sign mean? Oh, this was going to be cake, and it was. Even with an incorrect answer to how big does a red fabric flag need to be when it's sticking on the end of something sticking out of your car at a certain distance, which I still don't know, taking this test was a breeze. Or, you might say, false hope for what came next.
I had an overwhelming sense of ickiness.
Then you were up. You, your driving instructor, and at least for me, my big-ass family van. You hoped for a kind and friendly instructor, not the cold, all-business kind you saw in the movies. Feeling confident, but not cocky, you were off.
Watch out for the bike whip!
Oops, my bad.
City streets, turning, don't forget the turn signals, even hand signals. Looking in mirrors, stopping, yielding, highways, exits, all while the instructor either gave you the next direction or graded your performance silently on his paper and clipboard.
Oh, should I write them a note?
It was nearing the end for sure. Your white knuckles had relaxed and you headed back to the starting point. Then the final test, parallel parking. Yeah, every Gen Xer remembers the final test requirement. And I was doing it in a 16-foot van. You are so close to the end and you just go for it. I stopped midway and asked, could I try again? After being told that 2 points would be removed for a second attempt, I nailed that sucker and parked the car. The test was over and I waited for the results. My mother waited patiently with me. You had to get an 80%, like a B. They called me from the waiting room, reminded me of my passing written exam, and gave me my final score on the driving test. An 83% written in bold at the top of the instructor's evaluation. An 83! I passed. Suddenly, you're ushered over for one of the worst photos you'll ever take in your life. But you were getting your license. You would drive. By yourself, with friends, for you, for your parents. You were going to drive a car.
Once behind the wheel, a strange phenomenon takes place. Mr. Walker is charged with an overwhelming sense of power. His whole personality changes. Abruptly, he becomes an uncontrollable monster, a demon driver. Mr. Walker is now Mr. Wheeler, a motorist.
Something we had all hoped and waited anxiously for since we were kids. Always dreaming, fantasizing about. Being able to be in that driver's seat and be in control. Not on someone's lap, not steering the car for an older brother from the passenger seat, but a legal licensed driver. Over the moon, you would return home to share the news with the rest of the family and call a few friends to flex a moment before making plans. That night, I drove a friend of mine, my older sister, and her friend somewhere. For the life of me, I have no idea where. I know I picked them all up, but couldn't tell you where we went. We did get home after dark, but does any of that even matter? Having a license may have meant effectively being at your mother's beck and call, but we wouldn't have traded that for the world. Getting to drive by yourself, even with an errand to run, you left the house on your own and felt the first real taste of freedom. The freedom not unlike when your training wheels were finally removed from your bike, when your dad let go and you were sailing forward while pedaling, making a quick look behind you while a big smile of accomplishment came across your face. That face was that freedom. And you were feeling it all over again at 16. Not to mention the breeze in your hair as you sped down the highway with your windows open. Not everyone can get a car as a teenager, and even fewer got a brand new one. Sure, there were some lucky sons of bitches, but a best case scenario might be you share a family car and drive yourself to school. Or you might still be stuck being dropped off by a parent or the bus. Great news is that by this time you had friends that drove too, and that just meant maybe one of them could pick you up each day. Perhaps for the price of a McDonald's breakfast sandwich, you and some other friends could arrive and depart school together. Coming and going in a friend's car was better than some alternatives. Fortunate, by my junior year, my parents had gifted my sister and I used cars. Gifted did not mean they were actually ours. They were theirs, but they got them for us to use. We would have accepted anything as we expected nothing. They were new to us and we were grateful to get them. If we wanted to keep using them, it was time to learn the value of buying our own fuel and making sure the oil was changed in a timely manner. A used blue Buick Skylark. That September I drove to school, parked in the school lot, and had the freedom to come and go as I please. Of course, during the first week I got pulled over for not making a full and complete stop at an intersection. Ready for the worst, the officer gave me a ticket for my friends not being buckled. Whew, that wouldn't be my last ticket. Those were the days you could leave campus during a free period, or in my case, a yearbook class, and definitely for lunch. Each day could be a different cheap fast food, just anywhere, as long as we left school grounds for that hour and we were back in time for the next period. Just another reason why the best stuff came from the Gen experience. There you have it. Did you have a similar story and remember driver's ed? How was your driving test? Do you remember your grade and did you have to parallel park? If you look back at getting your license and having the chance to drive during high school and it makes you smile, let us know about it below and we can discuss it in the comments. It also may have been a horrible experience for you, and that's sometimes the case. But the excitement of driving was palpable for teens during the era, knowing it was something we could all achieve and what it meant when we succeeded. Thanks for joining me, everyone, and sticking around till the end. Victor here. If you loved that YouTube time machine or just wish you could have been there to live in the era that gave us the greatest stuff, you can, right here in the Gen Experience. Now look around the channel and don't forget those shorts to find other fantastic shows like this one. Now please click that like and consider supporting me by pressing subscribe. I'd really appreciate you helping me make great content for the future. I hope to see you all again soon. Until next time.